Hello guys, Oroth here and a warm welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you my favorite wizard challenge dungeon build. And before beginning I urge you to please subscribe to my channel if you find my content useful. My girlfriend has promised me she will treat me to something very special if I manage to reach 10,000 subscribers. So yeah, I really look forward to see what she has planned. But let's move on and talk about this build a little bit. What I like about this build is that it's very simple to use. It's not the highest single target DPS, but it's very efficient when you want to kill off all the adds in a dungeon, while it at the same time deal great damage against the bosses as well. What I also like about the build is that it's not something that you have seen before. This is a new type of archetype. I've not seen anyone else play it, and it actually performs better than any other challenge dungeon build I've tried out in terms of total damage output in a dungeon run. So let's move on and start by taking a look at the skills I'm using. As primary attack I use Electrocute. In the first skill slot I use Slow Time. In the second skill slot I use Frostfield. In the third skill slot I use Disintegrate. And in the fourth and final skill slot I use Ice Armor. If we take a look at the set pieces I'm using two pieces of Wildfire Imperative, because this will give my Wildfire a little bit of a buff. So Wildfire happens whenever you use a wind skill onto a burning enemy, and with this build we will both apply burn effects, but we will also apply a lot of wind damage. So it's a good set to buff the damage a little bit. I also use two pieces of Vitus Urge because I want to prolong a beneficial effect duration by 30%. And finally I use 4 pieces of Grace because this will increase my damage quite a lot. Let's continue and take a look at the essences I'm using. In the helmet slot I use Ephemeral Visage, and what it says is that Slow Time now increases your attack and movement speed while also causing your continual damage and persistent ground damage effects to deal damage faster. And I have a lot of these effects in this build, and I'm gonna list them a little bit later when we have gone through all of the essences. In the chest slot I use 4 Demon Vestment, and this essence is very cool, and here we have to go to the skill page to see what it does. So if I scroll down here to Frostfield, we can read that thanks to this chest, Frostfield now generates an elemental aura around you for 6 seconds, triggering additional elemental effects when an enemy is burned, chilled, frozen, shocked, or upon taking wind damage. So what are these effects? First we have the burn effect that generates a molten eruption, dealing damage to all enemies within the area, and this can occur once every second. And then we have the chill or freeze effect that will unleash an ice spike, dealing damage to all nearby enemies while also freezing them for 2 seconds. Each enemy can only be frozen once every 5 seconds, but this is not an issue in dungeons because most of the monsters will be dead within that time frame, and this effect can also occur every second. The third effect is shock, and whatever happens when I apply a shock effect to a target is that I will conjure a lightning storm that follows nearby enemies for 3 seconds, dealing damage every second to all enemies caught in its path. And this cannot occur more often than once every 3 seconds. But this means that the effect will be active for 3 seconds, so it's gonna be up all the time as well, as you will see when we play. The final effect is called wind damage. So what it does is that it will conjure a tornado whenever you deal wind damage to an enemy, and this tornado will follow nearby enemies for 3 seconds, also dealing damage every second to all enemies caught in its path. And this can also occur once every 3 seconds, but this will also be up all the time because the effect has a duration. So this essence is very cool, and I really wanted to build something that utilizes all of these effects at once. And that's why this build can perform so well. We can also take a look here that when I use Frostfield, the range is very big. So you can see now the fire around me and the ice, it's a huge area of effect. And yeah, so it will hit a lot of targets at once when we're running challenge dungeons. So it's very, very cool. If we continue here in the shoulder slot, I use Filter Defense. And what it says is that Disintegrate now surrounds you with an entropy field that follows you, damaging and making nearby enemies vulnerable to critical hits. So whenever I use Disintegrate, I will have this AoE effect, and whenever I hit a target, it will also make me deal more critical hits to that target. And this will also help my teammates to deal more critical hits. So it's not only a good skill for myself, it's also a good skill for my teammates. In the pants slot, I use Greaves of the Firmament, and what it says is that Disintegrate deals extra damage every 3 hits. And if you see a pattern here, this works very well with the helmet here from Slow Time, because thanks to Slow Time, this shoulder will deal damage more often, and therefore this pants will also trigger more often. And I can also mention, while we're at it, that when I use the Frostfield, these different effects, both the wind effect and the shock effect will trigger faster thanks to the Slow Time helmet. So that's why I'm using this specific Slow Time version. If we continue, I use the Eye Plucker in the first main hand slot, and what it says is that Electrocute critical hits also shock enemies, causing them to take some extra damage every second for 3 seconds. And this is of course also very strong, because this will help me to apply shock that will trigger the Frostfield effect. There are other ways to apply the shock effect. For example, there is a Slow Time helmet that also gives you an AoE effect that applies shock. But I have been doing a lot of testing, and this helmet performs a lot better. In the first offense slot, I use Bluster Bauble, and what it says is that Ice Armor now conjures a violent storm around you, dealing damage to nearby enemies, but it no longer absorbs damage. So whenever I use Ice Armor, you can see this AoE effect, and this actually counts as wind damage. So you can see now that when I use Frostfield, thanks to this Ice Armor version, I will conjure this tornado that you can see now. Of course, this effect also is hastened up by the helmet, so this Ice Armor will deal even more damage. I was also experimenting with all the different versions, and this one will perform the best. In the second main hand slot, I use Scour Cut, and what it says is that Disintegrate range is increased by 29%. So yeah, basically this AoE effect from Disintegrate will have a huge area compared to without this main hand. In the final offense slot, I use Shard Stigma, and what it says is that Electrocute also increases your primary attack speed by 6% for 3.2 seconds, and this can stack up to 5 times. So this is good at boss fights, so whenever I start attacking, or whenever I use the primary attack, you can see that I get this buff here that increases my primary attack speed. And it can increase it by up to 30%. Now when we have gone through the SSS, I also want to go through the legendary gems I'm using, but I'm also going to give you some suggestions on other gems that you can use if you don't have the ones that I have. I use Blood-Soaked Jade just for extra damage and some movement speed. I use Roiling Consequence for a lot of critical hit chance, but this also applies a burn effect, which will help me to trigger the burn Frostfield effect from the chest. I use Bottled Hope just for some extra movement speed and also some extra damage. I use Pain Claws for extra damage, Fervent Fang for extra damage, Mornskull for extra damage, Spectre Glass for extra damage, and I of course also use Colossus Engine, because most of the damage in this build comes from skills, and also I will increase my skill range when I use this gem, so I will have even better range on the AoE effects that I'm using with this build. If you don't have all of the gems that I have here, there are a lot of other options that are viable. You can use Wolfort, you can use Berserker's Eye, you can use basically anything that will increase your damage. So it's not very specific which gems you have to use. You can also use Chip of Stoned Flesh, because the chill effect from the Frostfield will stun all the monsters in a big area, and this will help you to apply an armor break from the Chip of Stoned Flesh. So feel free to experiment a little bit here, but I really like the setup I have here. So let's summarize what works well with the helmet, the slow time effect, and also what different things that will activate the different Frostfield effects. So if we start with the slow time effect from this helmet, we have the Roiling Consequence dot, We have the Frostfield wind and shock effect. We have the disintegrate. We have the ice armor. And also, thanks to triggering more ticks of damage, we will also deal more damage with the gray set. So it's a very good synergy there as well. And when we talk about the Frostfield effect triggers, the burn effect triggers from the rolling consequence dot. The chill/freeze effect will trigger from the rune here on your main hand that says that primary attacks have a chance to reduce enemy attack and movement speed, because this actually counts as a chill. And on top of that, you can also use the new Frostfield Terrorifix that will give you an AoE chill effect that deals damage. So it's really, really good with this build. I don't have it equipped right now, but you should get it if you use this build, if you want to optimize. If we look at the shock effect, it will come from this main hand as well, because we have this shock effect when we use the electrocute. And the wind effect from the Frostfield armor will come from the wind damage we cause with this ice armor version. I just mentioned Terrorifixes. On top of the Frostfield Terrorifix, you should also gain the ice armor Terrorifix that will increase your movement speed. Thanks to the Colossus engine, we will have quite good movement speed with this build. But if you want to increase it even further, you can also stack the ice armor Terrorifixes. Let us also take a quick look at which Paragon I'm using. I use the Slinger category, the top 5 here on the top, the old Weaver Paragon. But I could also switch this out for the bottom 5 here to the right in the Brawler category. If I'm in a very strong group, I maybe want to increase my size even further just to have more mobility. Or if I'm lacking gold, or if I want more resources, lately I've also started to use this Vanquisher setup here, the top 5. The old treasure hunter paragon tree, because it both gives me more gold and it will also drop a little bit more materials. And now with the new enchantments that has been released, we are using a lot more gold and resources, so this might also be viable in some situations. But of course this will drop your performance, and in most cases I like to play with the top performance. I think it's more fun, and that's how the game should be played in my opinion. We of course also have to take a look at the Warband settings, and most of the time I use the Protector Warband room, and this is just because I get extra size from the Shepherd's Burden. But here I could also of course switch to the damage room, because yeah, in challenge dungeons most of the time you are fighting nowadays instead of running. So maybe it's more preferable to opt for more damage compared to mobility. But yeah, I deal a lot of damage, so for me maybe I don't need to go all in on damage. I can focus a little bit on mobility as well. But that's from player to player, and you have to figure out what works best for you. We're of course also going to take a look at some gameplay within a dungeon where I show you the build in action, but let's just try out the training dummy real quick, and we can see that it deals good damage. It's not the highest single target DPS build in the game, but if we compare this to the spam builds that maybe deal a lot of damage to a single target, I believe that this build performs a lot better in dungeons. When we look at the DPS meter, I usually tend to perform a lot better using this build compared to other types of archetypes. So I would probably say that this is my favorite and the best wizard build for challenge dungeons right now. So I guess that's everything. So let's jump into a dungeon and look at the build in action. So here we are in Tristram Cathedral. And what I always do when I play this build is that I use my skills immediately, because I want to trigger Colossus engine to increase my size, because then I will move faster. And you will see that this build is very simple to play. You can use your skills whenever the cooldowns are ready. Remember that if you're waiting for a boss to spawn, maybe you should trigger them just before it spawns, so that you have all of your legendary gem effects active during the boss fight. But other than that, you really don't have to think about it a lot. You can just spam your skills whenever they are ready, use your primary attack, and everything will work out fine. What I also like about the build is that you don't have to spam buttons. It's very simple. It's a little bit less damaged against single targets, as I mentioned earlier, but overall it performs very well in dungeons. And also if you get the Sacrificial Pact affix in a challenge dungeon, you can still be useful playing this build. Because if you used to play the spam build, you know that whenever you get the Sacrificial Pact in a challenge dungeon, you're almost rendered useless. But with that being said, we still deal a lot of single target DPS with this build as well. So it's very all round. It's not good at only one thing, it's good at a lot of things. And if we were to compare this build with other classes, of course there are some classes that can use dot resolution builds, and those will perform even better. But for the wizard, I really think that this is the strongest challenge dungeon build, at least between all the builds I've been trying out. Maybe there are some other builds out there that I haven't seen or tried out yet. But yeah, please share in the comments if you have any ideas. So we're approaching the end of this dungeon, and I really hope that you found this guide useful and pedagogical. I tried to cover exactly everything that I could that was important to understand this build. But of course, feel free to ask me any type of questions in the comments if you need help with anything. And yeah, before we say goodbye, I urge you to please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. I would really appreciate it, and I don't want you to miss any new content. So if you like what you see here, if I deserve it, please subscribe. Like I always say, I also want to wish you a very nice day or a very nice evening wherever you are. And of course, to all of my clan members in Nyx, I would also like to say Vork Nyx Sholak Sol. So bye bye.
Guess who's back with some brand new content? Hit the bell button, maybe leave a comment. Oroth with the swagger, wanna see his game. Teach you all the secrets, it will be insane. Guess who's back with a brand new lesson? He will have the answer if you have a question. Oroth invites you to his awesome tribe. No more time to waste, it's time to hit subscribe. 1, 2, 3 is the man of our affection. 4, 5, 6 only aiming for perfection. 7, 8, 9 he is 10 out of 10. Subscribe and you will never miss a video.